Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Galactic Nerd Outpost. I am your host, Joey McGee, aka Gojin the fucking Slacker, because, well, Spider-Man review was supposed to be coming out ages ago, but hey, it came out now. And joining
Better
me
late
is
than never.
Exactly. And joining me again is Cody Bratch.
I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
God, I love that movie. And what we're going to talk about today is, well, as the title suggests, this is the after party of that Spider-Man review. For those of you who've seen that review, it seems to be doing pretty well into the algorithm for my channel size. I was hoping it would blow up. Unfortunately, it did not, but it is doing well in terms of my size, especially since it has 11 likes right now, so it's like, hey, that's pretty good. And there was a lot of work that went into bringing that fucking video to life. Let me tell you, like,
oh hell yeah,
like, let me get you guys some history. Like, first, me, Cody, and Trevor got together and reviewed the Korean kaiju fantasy film D-War, aka Dragon Wars. That video turned out pretty well. Go check that out if you haven't already. Then after that, it was getting close to Thanksgiving, and I was like, you know what? Let's take a look at one of my favorite movies that actually somewhat takes place on Thanksgiving, and that being Spider-Man 2002. Cody and Trevor agreed to it. And during this process on making this fucking video, things really began to become wild. Even more wild than it is with me in the bedroom with Cody's mom. And
oh god, there's your first one of the podcast.
Your mom sure isn't my first one. But she figured that out herself.
You know how I know that you're lying about me with my mom?
Why?
She can't stand the sound of your voice. Yeah, I actually had her watch the first 5 minutes of the review with me, mostly because I wanted to see how it's turning out when it first aired. When it first got uploaded, I wanted to watch the whole thing, but this kind of stuff isn't really her thing. But she knew it meant a lot to me, so it's like first 5 minutes, then we'll move on to something we both enjoy. But then in the process, she's like, "This guy's voice is very, very irritating." And when she said that, I'm like, "Ha! I'm gonna tell him you said that." And she's like, "No, don't." And I'm like, "I'm gonna tell him." And now I've told you.
Yeah. But then when we worked on this, the process of this video, Cody, like, that's a D-War review was already a lot to put together because there was 3 people who had a lot to say about the film. Then on the whole thing, first, Trevor decided he was gonna drop out, just like he dropped out of fucking school.
Yeah, he tried to be very. He was very trying to be very coy about it too. Where he's like, "You guys, good luck. Yeah, I wish you guys good luck, even though I'm not a part of it now." It's like you could have told us this in private instead of the. I don't know, the way he did it was just sort of jarring to me.
I agree.
Nothing against Trevor, of course. He's one of our best friends, and I love the guy like a brother.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy for sure. That's why I have him on these stuff. I wouldn't invite him if I didn't. But
I also understand from his point of view how socially awkward someone like us can be about these sort of things, where it's like we're struggling with it. Because at first he was very into the idea, but then it started to feel like a commitment to him, and he's just like, I don't know if I want to commit myself to something like that. Mostly because autism and laziness and ADHD in his case.
yeah, exactly. Tokupunk Productions said, "Oh shit, I'm late. What's up? Don't worry, you didn't miss much, Tokupunk. We just basically got started on the discussion." Tokupunk also said, "I never cared much for the Spider-Man or superhero films, but the hate is dumb. Lol. I loved your reviews. I'm glad you guys liked the review." When you say you don't care for superhero films, though, Tokupunk, you love Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman. You're a superhero guy. You're just a fan of J-Heroes.
Weeb.
Exactly. Then he also said, I like the Amazing Spider-Man films the best. Well, Trevor would agree with you on that. I like the Amazing Spider-Man films as well. The second movie is good too. It has a lot of Spider-Man 3's issues with pacing and so on.
Well, Tokepunk, you're free to like inferior trash.
Oh god. And
hey,
also,
I was courteous enough. I was courteous enough in the actual review itself. I don't give a fuck.
you were too courteous in the review. I had to cut out some of the shit you said because at points it seemed like you were devaluing your own opinion.
That's perfectly fair. Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. It's just that you see so many people on the internet on YouTube especially going, my opinion is right. I am right. I am undisputably right. You all are wrong. You can't argue with me, blah 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 blah. It's just like I don't want to be that guy.
If the thing is, people who say you can't argue with me, those people are fucking imbeciles and they have no right to be critiquing art because they don't understand how it works. The whole point of art, like I used to say opinions can be objective. Here's what I should be saying. Opinions aren't objective. Opinions are subjective, all of them, including political opinions. Some people will not like to hear that, but political opinions are still subjective. But just because opinions are subjective, some opinions are objectively better than others in terms of substance and things that, and if it matches the text better than another opinion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Even so, I didn't want to be the loudmouth who's always like, I'm always right, you're all always wrong. So that's where I was coming from at that point. I was like, WWSMD. What would Spider-Man do?
But that's why in my video, that's why my section at the end, I said that anybody could just go, oh, you're biased because you have nostalgia. And I even said, if the shit I'm saying is biased, then debunk what I'm saying. Don't just throw that fallacy around to devalue what I'm saying in favor of giving Holland a good sucky like always.
For sure. Anyways,
like,
you were talking about the what went into this. You were starting to make comparisons between this and the Dragon Wars review. Go ahead.
Okay, well, after Trevor left, it was just me and you. And then when I watched the movie again, I would be waiting for you to send your half before I truly started on mine, which I think that was a big mistake on my end because if I was started writing my script and recording my lines before you sent yours, I think that would have made the whole thing much easier, but I wanted to wait on you. And then when you sent me all these clips, I saw all this work ahead of me, and then I basically had a mental breakdown, and I was like, oh shit, I can't do this. And I kept pulling it off.
Let me explain this, everyone. See, when I send my material to Joey, I record clips one paragraph at a time. I do this in an attempt to do my absolutely best to make sure I get the right take. I get the absolute right take, because if I go on too long, I'm afraid I might start to slur my words, or I might start to get a little grumpy because I went on so long, and it might show in my voice while I'm doing the review. So that was my thing about it. But however, that ended up happening anyways, because I'm an autistic motherfucker who's not used to doing this yet, and B, I ended up having to do multiple takes because every time I would stumble, I would delete the take I had and then try a different take, and it started to make me grumpier and grumpier as I was going. And I think you can tell that a little bit in my initial parts of the review. You can hear the grumpiness in my voice because I'm barely enunciating and all of that, as opposed to the majority of the rest of the review where I comparatively sound better, except for stunted line delivery when I was trying to read off the script.
Well, before I respond to that, I got to read this out loud to you. Tokupunk Productions said, Cody's face reveal, he looked like a Giga Chad version of Mr. Anime, LMFAO. Cody, don't worry, you're not the next Chris Chan. I hope you have the will to not do Cody like he's your mom. Oh my god. Well, let me tell you about Mr. Anime first. Mr. Anime is a friend of our buddy Mad Matt. I still like Mad Matt, but my relationship is not solid with Mr. Anime. I just think he's a weird dude who likes lolly. That's all I can say. And
You likes lolly? Ew!
Yeah.
And you compare me to this guy, Tokupunk? What the fuck? I thought we were friends.
And he looks very weird. When Tokupunk said he's like Chris Chan, he kind of is. Oh god, I would like if you want to see what Mr. Anime's well, like watch that debate he had with Grimsy. That shit was awful. Oh my god.
Hey, I'll admit, I'm a weird looking motherfucker. I make no bones about who I am as a person. I'm a autistic ass motherfucker, kind of weird looking. Sometimes I say things that don't make a whole lot of sense, but I have awesome friends. I got a great family, and I got a woman who loves me. And so, at the end of the day, that's what matters most. I still consider myself a rather lucky guy.
Yeah, and plus, you look better than him.
You're goddamn right, baby.
Oh, but as I was about to say about your sending segments aspect, I actually like that because I do it myself. It makes it where content is easier to send lines out competently, but the thing is, just like me, you're a passionate nerd, and you had a lot to say about this movie. That's why the review ended up being over an hour long. So when I saw all that ahead of me, I was like, "Oh shit!"
It's honestly kind of a blessing in disguise that Trevor dropped out, because imagine what he would have had to say and how long the review would have been if all three of us tried to tackle this motherfucker.
Exactly. Like, even though it did bother me how Trevor decided to leave, it's at the same time, I'm glad he did, because the review would have been a bitch to get out. Oh god, just thinking of that.
Yeah, there's literally only one thing two things I regret about him departing. One, we lost a friend. We lost a friend working on this, a friend that was actually quite a confident reviewer himself. And B, lost a joke I was gonna make, because Trevor has these segments where he's like gives trivia sometimes, and one of the things he was gonna give trivia on was the fact that in the mid to late 80s, Tobe Hooper, the horror movie director who made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he was going to try his hand at making a Spider-Man movie, but he had no idea anything about the Spider-Man mythos, so he was going to do a body horror version where he turned into a human tarantula, and I was going to send in a vocal clip of me going, "Hey, wait a minute, Gojin, did you already review that movie?" as a cheap plug for his Earth versus the Spider review.
Oh yeah, like the Earth vs. Spider review was like a neat little what if take on the Raimi Spider-Man films. Like go and check that out if you're interested. It's an old video of mine, but I'd say it still holds up well enough. I have no reason to give a new review on it because I still think the video's good to this day. I'm not sure about you, Cody.
Oh, I enjoy the review as is. I thought it was very well done. Yeah. So, yeah, Trevor dropped out, and then like Joey once said, I ass raped his email inbox because I sent him so many voice clips. So, yeah, you said you had a mental breakdown over it?
Yeah, like basically all my optimism for the review just died down. I was just like, I'm never gonna get this out by Thanksgiving. And then I was like, okay, Cody, let's get this out around the time of Across the Spider-Verse. And little did I know, waiting till that time, I fucking underestimated. Like, it's weird to say I underestimated it because I freaked out when you sent me all those clips. But I did underestimate how hard this video would be to put together because when I started editing it, it still took me a few months later after Across the Spider-Verse's release to get the fucking thing out. So it
I
did
kept
come
telling
out.
you ahead of time. I kept telling you ahead of time you should really start working on it sooner, but you kept poo-pooing me off.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have, but I underestimated it. And then it was a fucking nightmare to put together. But at least it came out well. Of course, though in terms of coming out well, I do want to say this. I have a channel on Rumble I'm gonna be uploading to. Like when it comes to that channel on Rumble, it's gonna right now it's forwarding my old school content, and the whole thing with that, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Like the whole thing with the Rumble channel is it's mirroring my old content from YouTube, but I also want to upload some videos that have some touch-ups of them when there's flaws in them. Like, for example, the Kamen Rider Black Sun review. It's a great video, but when I upload it to Rumble, what I want to do, there's some segments I wanted to add to that video, and one of them was diving more into the Kaijin of that series and in talking about Oliver. There's also some fixes I want to do on the Spider-Man review. Particularly, apparently the audio balancing isn't the best on my end. Like, it sounds perfect when you're not wearing headsets, but when you put earbuds in, for some reason, it only comes out of one end. So in that case, I just say just watch the review without earbuds because it sounds fine. But
I would also like to point out that there are occasions where between your audio talked over the movie clips and shots of you actually talking to a camera, the audio isn't consistent. It's actually louder when you're talking over the movie versus when you're talking to the camera, if that makes sense.
yeah, I can get that. Like basically when it basically for the most part the reviews find the way it is. I'd say I'm very happy with it. Just don't watch it with earbuds. However, I do want to, when I upload this review to Rumble, I want to fix that. I want to balance it on both ends, where if someone wants to watch it with earbuds in their ears, it sounds fine on both. And I also want the audio overall to be consistent in that regard.
Yeah. What the fuck was I about to say? Overall, I'm happy with the video as is too. For the most part, I think he knocked it out of the park in terms of editing. However, there were some things that were a bit flubbed here, but there were minor nitpicks. Like when I mentioned in my section where I mentioned Betty Brant and Liz Allen, you being romantic interests of Peter Parker, you accidentally showed the wrong images of the wrong girls in those moments from the comic books. And
Okay.
also, when it came time to my comparison between the Goblin's entrance at the festival and the Wicked Witch of the West's entrance of the Emerald City, you didn't show her flying over Emerald City. You showed her first appearance in Munchkin Land, which is not the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
that's not the same scene.
Well,
I know.
But that's one of the things I want to use Rumble for, is the kind of, if I notice flaws on the YouTube uploads, I could add the perfected versions on there.
Right on. That's cool.
Tokupunk Productions said Black Sun was perfection. The show or the video? The show, definitely. The video, I'd say I'm very happy with the video, but there's some things I want to add in it for the Rumble upload to just kind of really do the show justice. He also said, I don't use Rumble much, just Leafy. Oh yeah, I mostly use Rumble for Leafy is here too, but it's like, hey, it's alt tech that's getting big, so might as well use it. Tokupo Production said, I'm disappointed y'all didn't mention Sum 41 song with Kerry King, 0 out of 10. Oh yeah, I love Sum 41. I forgot them. Huh?
No, you go ahead.
Toku Punk said, I love Nickelback's song at the end. Cody got balls for pissing off music critics saying modern pop is bad.
It is!
It is. It's fucking garbage. Like, I know people joke about me being a weeb when I say I only like J-pop and some K-pop, but here's the thing. When you listen to J-pop and some K-pop, the style is completely different than what you get in other parts of the world. Like, listen to a lot of anime or even tokusatsu openings. Like, compare Be the One, the opening song of Kamen Rider Build, to some shit from Miley Cyrus. It's completely different.
Right on. Oh, here was another thing I wanted to bring up since you brought up the Nickelback song Heroes. Something I guess you either forgot to put in or decided wasn't worth putting in because the impact would have been lost. I had suggested putting a dedication. At first, it was just a dedication to Jason David Frank, Tommy Oliver from Power Rangers, and Kevin Conroy, who is the world's greatest Batman of all time. Because this was going to come out on Thanksgiving originally, right around the time both actors had passed away, and you agreed with that. And then it got delayed by a little more than half a year. And then I suggested adding a dedication to John Romita Sr., who was the second artist to work on the Batman comics after the original artist Steve Ditko left. And then just adding in Stan Lee because, well, Spider-Man co-creator, and the world at least the nerd world is still sort of feeling his loss even to this day. So I thought it would make sense. And I thought you should have them over an acoustic cover of that Nickelback song Hero. I guess you just forgot about it or just decided not to do it because those video was already so long. What's up with that, Joey?
I'm probably gonna add that to Rumble upload. I didn't add it into this upload because it was already a nightmare to put together, and I kind of just hit a point where I was like, I just want to get this finished, if that makes sense, because it was starting to really get under my skin, and I had other videos I wanted to do. Like, I do editing commissions for money, and I kind of wanted to get the Spider-Man review out of the way to also focus on that and also other videos because soon I also have a series of videos I'm working on with a collab of other YouTubers. That's going to be a big thing. So I also wanted to get this out of the way as soon as possible before that comes, but I might add that into Rumble upload.
Okay. I figured that might have been what happened, or you just forgot about it, as I keep saying. Sorry for repeating myself, but even without that, as is, it still turned out good. And also, that little snippet of the chorus you added in after I talked about the song, I was just like, oh my god, that's powerful shit. That's good shit.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, I'm not too bothered about it. I just thought it was relevant to bring up since, again, we're talking about the review and everything.
Oh, yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah. Want to bring up something Toku Punk actually said in the comments a little bit earlier that I agree with. That's also relevant to our review. Toku Punk said they just hate it because of Cosmonaut Variety Hour. That guy has the worst takes ever. Yeah, fucking that video he made reviewing the Sam Raimi trilogy is such complete bullshit. It's just like, oh my gosh. And I'm watching a fucking train wreck hit.
Is that the video called Not As Good As You Remember?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I watched Mahler in Rag's EFAP podcast deconstructing that shit. It is a terrible video because, as Mahler said in the response on his podcast, EFAP is kind of like our podcast. They do a lot of things similar to what we do. What Mahler even pointed out, and what that video is, it's like he's criticizing it for existing because he's saying shit like, "Oh, this is campy," or "Oh, this is dated," and it's like, so what? Campiness is a tone of direction. That doesn't mean it's inferior. First of all, it's superheroes. It's all campy. Just like when you look at stuff like the MCU, that's a different brand of camp. This is comic book camp. The MCU, an issue many people have with that, is they don't really feel like comic books brought to screen. They feel like typical Disney blockbusters, and they're campy in that regard. While this is campy in the sense of, well, comic book. And that's one of the appeals of it. And campiness doesn't mean it's inferior. There's some really... Campiness is a tone of direction. Like, is something inferior for being what it is?
Yeah, that was really cringe. There's a lot I could say about it, except I would have to go through the video beat for beat and keep on being like, okay, you're stupid. Oh, you're even stupider. Dude, quit being so stupid. But
yeah, because
obviously it would be more constructive than that, but still.
Basically, he was just criticizing it for existing. And what's worse is not only was he criticizing it for existing, he was criticizing it for being an accurate Spider-Man movie. Like, what the fuck?
Which is exactly what I was praising it for being a accurate Spider-Man movie. That's why I was so hard on other adaptations, because we see a movie here that is so true to the original material and the soul, the spirit, the feeling of it is just like, it set the bar so high for me when it comes to adaptations. So it's like, why can't other adaptations be this good? Having said that, you still have a point with what you say, Joey, when you're like, if it's a good enough story on its own, it shouldn't matter how accurate it is to the source material. So from that, when you explain like that, I get your point, but because of how good this movie is of being an adaptation, I still have a hard time ripping myself away from that whole, but is it accurate to the source material mentality?
Oh, that's fine. It's fine to have that sort of preference, but I think it's always best to look at something in its own direction, because, like, for example, like, I think if people who aren't into it can enjoy the material, I think that really says what the quality is. Because what made the accurate aspects of the Spider-Man film work is they're written and delivered in a sense where most of it isn't crammed. A person who hasn't read the comics or seen other adaptations can watch the movie and know what's going on. They can get a competently told narrative.
Right?
And
so yeah.
You finish?
No, you finish. I want to hear what you have to say, because this is good stuff.
Basically, as I was say is, like, yeah, I do think when it comes to things going a different direction, I can see why fans could be disappointed by something being an in-name only adaptation, but I think that after the disappointment wears off, you should kind of forgive it and judge it on its own merits. But this movie, on the other hand, this is what I can't deny and say, if you're going to do an adaptation, it shouldn't be an in-name only thing. It should be accurate to the source material to some degree. And this movie, I think, did do that.
Yeah. Oh, remember how I was talking about in the review about some edgelord doing their impersonation of what a YouTube critic sounds like, trying to tell me why Tobey Maguire's acting in the movie is bad?
Yeah.
That edgelord got that take from watching the Cosmonaut Variety Hour video reviewing the Spider-Man movies.
Oh, I saw that. I figured that out when I was editing it. And what kind of got under my skin with that whole thing, it's like, well, the guy doesn't even explain why Tobey's a bad actor. He just goes, bleh, whenever the commentary begins whenever he starts narrating the story. It's like, that's not substance.
Yeah, it's really not. There's so much wrong with Cosmonaut's review of those movies. It's honestly staggering.
Exactly. Tokapunk Productions said...
Go ahead.
Tokapunk Productions said Cosmonaut defending She-Hulk was defending She-Hulk, saying people are just being toxic, and it's a fine show, and people just hating it for the sake of hating it. Oh, fuck off with that, Cosmonaut. Like, he has no right to talk about people, to talk about other people's opinions when he offers no substance to the conversation. He just says something is. That's it. Or criticizes it for being going the direction it wanted to. Like, first of all, it's dumb to criticize something for going a certain direction in general. Like, some people criticize stuff for being overly philosophical and deep, which is dumb because not everything needs to be simple. And then you have that same group of people that wants to criticize media for being simplistic or very campy. And it's like, both of these brands have their own direction and their own checklist. Neither one is objectively better or worse than the other. They just appeal to different demographics, and ones that are well done will gain the attention of those demographics.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't actually watch the review itself that Cosmonaut did, but I actually watched a video by a YouTuber named Shady Durags, who had another YouTuber whose name I don't remember on, collaborating, and they were deconstructing his video, say what was wrong with it. That was when I saw that, I'm just like, fuck yeah, someone finally put Cosmonaut in its place, because for a while there was like a whole bunch of people, including some of my friends, my IRL friends, who were acting like Cosmonaut Variety was like the voice of the voiceless or whatever. Like, he was the one who had all the right answers. He's got the true opinion, the one that matters the most. And I'm just like, God, fuck off. This is the same guy that's saying She-Hulk is worth watching. Y'all shut your mouths.
Yeah, because, like, yeah, I can see why a review can sway someone's opinion on something. Like, I've had my opinion changed and stuff because I think a good thing of understanding art, a good thing of critiquing art is trying to understand it. But here's the thing. He was being pretentious. He's the definition of a pretentious critic. He criticizes something for being what it aims to be rather than judging on its own merits. He says a bunch of dumb shit like, he says a bunch of dumb shit without giving any substance, like bashing Maguire as an actor. Like, compare my defense of Maguire to Cosmonaut's criticism of Maguire.
Both of our defenses, actually.
Exactly, both of ours, because in his sense, he said, his argument is blah. That's his argument of Tobey Maguire. Our argument, like you said, you can tell he's always thinking, and I showed some visual proof on what you were saying to show how awkward he was when he caught MJ in that one moment. Or as I pointed out, when he's playing Spider-Man, it's like a completely different character because in those moments, Maguire is much more confident than he is as Peter because that's his power fantasy. That's objectively a better formed opinion than any shit Cosmonaut said.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I wanted to bring out. I do wish I had talked more about his performance as Spider-Man than what I did, but I was so enamored with how he was as Peter Parker. He just did such a good job that kind of overtook the job he did as Spider-Man, which wasn't bad. If anything, him and also the stuntmen working on him did a great job acting physically, because he couldn't use his face to act at that moment. He had to act verbally and physically. Like good example on the bridge when the Goblin's holding MJ and the tram is telling him to choose, that little shudder he does before saying "Don't do it, Goblin." It's like that. That's a good emotional response. It's like, oh my God, I'm in way over my head. What the fuck am I going to do? You get that with only a single shudder, a single movement. That is really good shit. I really should have brought that stuff up now.
Exactly. And when people talk about, like, this is something I think I should have dived in a bit more into, but the thing about the trilogy, you see Tobey Maguire gradually change his performance as Peter Parker grows more confident throughout the trilogy. Because in the first movie, he's very socially awkward, but when he gets these powers, he slowly gets more confident. He's still awkward to a degree, like when he's talking to MJ, making up this bullshit encounter he had with his alter ego. You could definitely tell that he's just making that shit up on the spot as he stutters and all that shit. And of course, as Spider-Man, as stated, he's much more confident because that's his power fantasy. But even then, in the first movie, he's still awkward to a degree, as I said. In the second movie, that's his progressing character. Because in the second movie, he's not nearly as awkward, but he's more so just trying to come to terms with the alterations being a superhero has done with his life. And then in the third movie, he's officially fully confident because his reputation in the public is now fully positive. He's got a girlfriend. It's everything. Like, Spider-Man 3 has a lot of problems with pacing and such, but it is the perfect third movie in terms of progressing Peter's character, and Maguire's performance is a big help with that.
Yeah, I put such an emphasis on characters because for me, if it comes down to it, if I have to choose between a movie with a good story and great story and good characters, or a movie with great characters and a good story, I'd prefer the one with the great characters because I love character writing. The characters are who I'm following the most and who I want to see go through the most throughout these movies. That's why, and also to your point about that scene with him in the hospital when he's talking to Mary Jane, and you can tell he's making it up. It's not just his hesitations; it's also the emotion, the shaky emotion he puts into his voice when he's talking to MJ. In my opinion, because you could tell that like he's just been waiting to say that to her. It's like now that the time has come, you can hear the emotion in his voice, and you get a clue. At least I think MJ gets a clue. Like, this guy is bullshitting me. He's just been trying to tell me all this time he thinks I'm fine.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. And like I said in the review, I swear she had an idea he was Peter Parker. And in the second movie, while she was still giving him shit in the second movie, you finish?
I was going to say, I think so too. Hell, she even says as much at the end of Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, like I always kind of knew. And in Spider-Man 2, I think a big reason she was giving him attitude is she wanted him to tell her everything. She didn't want that secret. And the whole reason why she kissed Peter, the whole reason in Spider-Man 2002, when she said, I think I have a superhero stalker, and she was all happy, because just a little bit before she was talking to Peter, and she already had an idea that he saw that shit. And the only reason why she kissed him was to test it. And when she kissed him again in the hospital, she didn't kiss him in the hospital, but when she kissed him again at the end, I swear she was testing him. And the second movie kind of adds to this take, because remember when he says, I don't love you in the second movie, and she tells him to kiss her? She's trying to see that, is this the man I kissed in the rain of the first movie?
Absolutely. And also, you get the sense that Peter kind of wants to tell her, but at the same time knows he can't in the first movie. That's why he says, I was in the neighborhood first to her as Peter Parker, and then as Spider-Man afterwards to try to give her that hint. And that's probably how part of how she got an idea in her head that she might know, wait a minute, is that Peter?
Exactly. Like, everything about it gives off the cue that, hey, she has a clue that he's Peter Parker. And see, that's a big reason why acting matters, because acting can tell a story just as much as writing can. When the dialogue's not telling it, the actors can.
I apologize, everyone, for how much I've been coffeeing on this podcast.
He's busy choking on my dick.
There isn't enough there to choke on. Dead.
Well, it's not my fault you have a big mouth.
Look who's talking. But the reason I'm coughing so much is recently I contracted a case of the Rona. And like, even though I'm basically okay now, like I'm fully recovered. Okay, I haven't fully recovered. They say that even once you feel like you're a little bit better, you're mostly better, the Rona can still leave lingering effects. I think this coughing is just one of those effects, so sorry.
That's fine. I actually thought nothing of it. But yeah.
Getting back to Peter's character, you mentioned how he'd come full circle in Spider-Man 3. I wanted to just say something. one of the things I love about him in Spider-Man 3 is that he still stays a bit of a goober despite how much more confident it is. It's the fact that he's a goober and he's so much more confident that during the whole Key to the City celebration before he becomes Spider-Man, you see him start to dance and march in place to the beat of the band because he's all like, fuck yeah, they're all here to celebrate me. I'm feeling it. Yeah, you guys play that music. I'm right there with you.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that, and a lot of that is thanks to Maguire's portrayal. That's why when people say that, people who bash Tobey Maguire, their arguments boil down to the fact he's awkward, but they fail to see that's the fucking point. Well, awkward till up to 3. Well, up to in 3, he's confidently awkward.
Oh no, he's still a little awkward. He is confident, but he's still awkward. Like again, that little marching scene of his. And also the fact that he got himself so caught up in. Yes. Cody, stop giving people COVID. I ain't give no one COVID. You shut your whore mouth, Doku Punk. Lies and slander. But yeah, I was actually really glad that this was a collab thing and I didn't do it on my own, because you brought up a lot of points that I didn't even think to make. Like the whole puberty allegory was a stroke of genius on your part. The fact that you saw it, because I was so busy talking about source material accurate, and also the among other things. Like from what the way I can say it, I was approaching it from the point of view of a Spider-Man fan, and you were approaching it from the point of view of a lover of cinema and a reviewer of cinema. I know you're a Spider-Man fan too, and I can do the movie critique thing too, but you're clearly better at it than I am, and I'm clearly deeper into Spider-Man stuff than you are, only because I proudly own and read these comic books because they're so fucking good.
Yeah, and I think in that regard, even though I go on about the whole source material thing, I think your part had its own value of intrigue, because, if people like to talk of people who claim to be Spider-Man fans like to trash on Maguire, you gave reasons on, hey, this movie actually connects more to the comics than almost any other adaptation of the character. So it's if anyone likes to down the film for being similar to the comics, you gave reasons on how it actually paid respect to them. So it's I still respect that. And even in terms of the media critique thing, I think you did a really good job in a lot of parts, because you mentioned some things I didn't go into too. For example, I think I could have went a bit deeper into the CGI. You went in, I think you brought some things that I didn't. For example, you said the movie is at its best when Spider-Man is web swinging, which I can agree with you on that, the movie's CGI effects.
Yeah, I think it works best when he's in his actual Spider-Man costume as opposed to his proto-Spider-Man costume when the wrestling one, because that sequence, while you brought up why it's decent, I could still notice that it was a computer animated character. And I also, when you brought up how all the other things you brought up about the CGI, about how they could sometimes feel weightless or smaller than they are, and also just the fact that the rendering wasn't the best, that close up on the bridge when he grabs the tram's cable and then it shows a close up of his computer generated face, the goblins. It's that's not a person. That's a computer generated effect. But we can give it. Yeah, we give it pass though, because there are decent things about it, and they still use it competently enough. And again, this was when those type of computer generated effects were in their infancy. So, and like I said, these computer generated effects walked so future ones could run.
Exactly. And when it comes to effects, they only use them when necessary. So it's something I actually really do respect about the movie, because they knew CGI wasn't their strong suit. And even if, let's say the CGI artists pushed boundaries for that time, CGI still wasn't in enough of a state where I think it should be relied on. So as a whole, I think them using it only when necessary was a stroke of genius in that regard.
For sure, for sure. I agree completely. Oh, and thank you, Toku Punk, about the things that I made a lot of great points. I appreciate that. But don't sleep on Joey's side of the review. He did a great job himself.
I appreciate it, man. You did a great job too.
Thank
And
you.
even though I went into
Let's stop jerking each other up. How about it?
But even though we gave but I dived into the Tokuhiro aspects too. You mentioned some things I didn't even notice, like the Goblin giving Spider-Man the rider kick. Like, there's no way all that shit is incidental. Like the Toku martial arts, the style of choreography, all that is pulled straight out of older Kamen Rider. The Goblin design looks like something out of those types of tokusatsu shows. Even when you look into the William Dafoe's eyes in the mask, or even his mouth, it kind of looks like something out of Showa Kamen Rider. When you think about that, because back in the day, they would use the actor's eyes in the suits. And there was definitely a lot of it there. And then the rider kick, it's like, all of that, Raimi has got to be a fan.
Absolutely. I think so too. And how you deconstructed people's arguments about how the Goblin costume looks goofy and how it looks like something out of Power Rangers, and you're just like, listen here, motherfucker. It's like comic book stuff is always going to be inherently goofy to an extent. So it's like you're basically, like you said, they're basically asking it to supplant the comic books feel for generic blockbuster stuff.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that personally doesn't appeal to me about the MCU is that's all they're trying to be. It's like the fact that I can compare the tone of the MonsterVerse to the tone of the MCU. I shouldn't able to do that. Their tone should be very distinctive, but no, they feel similar. But that's because that's the standard blockbuster feel now.
Yeah, for better or worse, what they've started to do with the MCU, what's turned into, and what they feel the film industry thinks it has to turn into. I actually kind of resent the MCU for that. I'm not gonna lie.
I can agree with that, especially since it also kind of fucked up the standard with CGI and comedy. Because now comedy is a checklist. They don't care about making something actually funny. They make something that they just want to add it in for the sake of it. And I don't blame the writers of the MCU. Because the thing is, Multiverse of Madness, despite being, I think, written by Sam Raimi too, it had a lot of forced humor too. And I don't put that on Sam Raimi. I put it on he was forced by Disney on a fucking deadline to write in humor without giving him proper time to cook, like Sony gave him with the humor in Spider-Man 2002. Or the entire trilogy, for that matter.
Right on. I'm looking it up right now, and he didn't write the Multiverse of Madness, just directed it.
Okay, because I was like the humor, because like the Sam Raimi knows how to do comedy. He did it with Evil Dead. He did it with Spider-Man. It's like, come on. Tokupunk Productions.
Half baked as fuck. Yes, it was Tokupunk.
I enjoyed it, but there was definitely a lot of issues with it. Like, there's a 6-hour fucking Mauler review. I still haven't finished of it yet. I watched it bits by bits because it's a good video, but it's so fucking long. I'm never making a video that long. But there was definitely a lot of problems he pointed out with the movie. It's like, yeah.
I liked it initially when I saw it, but the second time I saw it, I'm just like, this is kind of mid, because even though they go on about how it's a multiverse film, they don't really do anything interesting with it. It's like they're sort of meandering a bit. And also, they have that really, again, the now awful MCU humor, like with lines like, we're going to take you to the Illuminati. The Illumawati? It's like, dude, the word Illuminati has been used multiple times in media and like referring to an actual conspiracy theory of a secret society. You should know what the word Illuminati is by now. You're a grown, learned man, Doctor Strange, who uses whooshy magic. Fucking know your shit.
Exactly. I do like that he added horror elements in it, though, like he did the Spider-Man trilogy, because that did give it some personality from the other MCU films. but overall, it still wasn't anything special. Oh, and Bruce Campbell cameo was good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially at the end with his end credits scene where he's just like, it's over! Everyone was expecting something. It's just like, nope. One big ass troll for everyone who sat through the credits.
Tokupunk Productions said Blue Nova's server defending Ant-Man 3 and keep dissing Shin Kamen Rider bit by bit every second LMAO. Oh god, I could not join that server. Oh god. And I feel like the reasons for Shin Kamen Rider, like, you already told me one of the things why they don't like Shin Kamen Rider is they claim it's bad for new fans. It's like, motherfucker, I never seen an episode of the original Rider till like a month or two afterwards of watching that film. I understand it perfectly. Just because it's moving fast does not mean that fast pace isn't well done. It does a little bit of showing and telling to bring the story of indoctrination to life. It's overall a good story. Saying something is fast-paced as a way to degrade it is not a substantial criticism. You gotta explain why that fast pace fucked it up.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I still haven't watched the original Kamen Rider series yet, and I still thought Shin Kamen Rider was pretty alright myself.
Exactly, it's like that. It's pretty easy to follow. So I just don't understand that. And the only reason why you weren't as high on Shin as I was is because, well, there's a lot of dialogue that goes on it, and it made it where for you it was a lot like Singular Point in the regard where you couldn't grab everything on first viewing.
Yeah, I'll admit that's. Yeah, but that's still on me. That's not the film's fault. Now, if there was a collective majority that was agreeing with me, then maybe that my stance might hold more weight than what it does. But still, I'm just a single individual who said that. So therefore, I'd say that's more on me than the movie. There you go.
Exactly, and I respect that you acknowledge that. And when people say it's not fast, it's fast-paced, doesn't give everything enough to breathe, it's like, the fuck you talking about? Like, one of the people I watched it with didn't care for anything Kamen Rider prior. He thought a lot of it was mid. He watched that movie, liked it a lot, and felt the characters were the strong point of it.
And also, people forget that there's actually a lot of quiet moments in Shin Kamen Rider where characters get a chance to breathe, interact, and they get to build the story off of those calm interactions, in addition to all the fast-paced stuff.
Exactly. And then when people talk about stuff like the style of combat, like one thing I will say is I like that Shin Kamen Rider is getting more positive attention than not. But I don't know, the fact that Blue Nova's server is saying all this shit, it's like it gets under my skin. Especially since while I like the original Rider show, I'm gonna tell you this right now: the original Kamen Rider is not as good as Shin Kamen Rider. You might enjoy it more.
Oh.
That would piss off a lot of snobs, but it's not as good. I'll tell you this right now. Noriko, her departure in it gets fucked over. Like, she's mentioned to go with Hongo, and then when Hongo comes back, she never does. She's never mentioned again. When it comes to the character development, there's less to the characters. As a whole, it's just not as good as Shin. It's a good show. Don't get me wrong. I highly recommend checking out the original Kamen Rider series. But Shin Kamen Rider, and Anno probably would disagree with me saying this since he said his goal wasn't to improve the original. But the thing is, the original Kamen Rider is still not as good as Shin. Blue Nova would not like that take because he has a few videos talking about why that show is so good. But it's like, it's true. There's a lot of flaws in the original Kamen Rider series. Like, even the first few villains of the original Kamen Rider, you could find flaws in their costumes. Like, I think it was the Mantis. When you see his arm, you can see the actor's human arm poking out of the suit. Like, that was something they could have avoided, even in a TV show 50 years ago. Like I said, that would piss off snobs. But the thing is, Shin Kamen Rider's better, and I would die on this hill.
Joey, we got something juicy that Tokupunk brought to my attention. In regards to Shin Kamen Rider, he said, ducking Rick the Cunt liked it.
You mean Rick the Cunt? Oh, yeah, him. I'll give him this.
To which I say, a broken clock is still right twice a day.
Yeah, even if he still has no nuts.
None whatsoever?
Yep. But it's like most people do like the film though. Like look it up on Google, like look up Shin Kamen Rider and go in news. You can see a bunch of people praising the hell out of that film. It's a very well received movie. Just you have some people that are, well, hating on it because of its fast paced direction. And it's like I don't know how you could bash Shin Kamen Rider for its fast pace and then like Shin Ultraman, when honestly I think Rider did the pacing a little bit better.
J.J. Abrams, don't disrespect Anno like that. I used to really like J.J. Abrams, but here's the problem with J.J. Abrams. He's good at setting things up, but he's not good at following through and delivering at the end. And he himself has said this kind of stuff in TED Talks he's had, where he's just like, it's all about the setup and the mystery for him, as opposed to paying all that off. That's why you get people saying that his material is good at the beginning, but then it gets shitty at the end. Like some would say that's how it is for Lost. I know that that's been a big critique for his show Lost. And some have even said the same about the movie Cloverfield, that it doesn't have a really good ending, that it just sort of stops. So when you get a bunch of people saying this about J.J. Abrams, and even J.J. Abrams admitting it himself to an extent, yeah, that's not someone you want to compare Anno to, because Anno's not like that at all. Anno's fans have seemed to think for the most part that he's good at telling a fluent and coherent story that pays off everything, whereas J.J. Abrams does not.
Exactly. Anno does a really good job with the stories he's telling. Like, basically, anybody who trashes Shin Kamen Rider, they could just say stuff like, oh, the pacing's bad, nothing gets developed, and then I could respond and correct them what the pacing does do right. Like, the development that goes on with Hongo, the proper use of exposition, and things of that nature. Like, every time I respond to people with that, they never have a rebuttal to it, because I'm going to say right now, they're only negative. They just don't like the concept of it being fast paced. They don't like its somewhat episodic concept, even though they made it work. But the point is, they wanted Anno to use a different style of direction. They didn't want him to make the Rider film he was wanting to make.
Ugh. Yeah, that's why I'm actually doing my best not to shit on the Godzilla Polygon trilogy anymore. I know I keep falling back into it sometimes, but that's something I gotta get away from, because my only critique of the movie so far, okay, not my only, but my biggest one, is that it's not what I wanted, and that's what everyone says. That's not a good enough critique. Just because it's not what you wanted doesn't make it bad. And
exactly.
Joey keeps trying to pound this point into people, especially me, but no one seems to be willing to listen. I'm trying my best to listen, but I can't seem to get over it. I gotta get out of the echo chambers of people saying that the Polygon trilogy is bad. I still don't think I'll ever be able to enjoy it as is, but I can at least acknowledge that just because it's not what I wanted doesn't make it bad.
Exactly. Like, for example, with Mechagodzilla City, like, many people clowned on Mechagodzilla City, but Mechagodzilla City, while it sounds like a goofy thing to say, when you really think about it, it's not really a badly executed idea, because the whole concept of Mechagodzilla City is basically, he's not Mechagodzilla now. That Mechagodzilla was the machine's past life. With the machine's past life. What it is now is nanometal that turned into a city. Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle is not trying to be a versus Mechagodzilla film. Mechagodzilla has long been destroyed. Mechagodzilla City is just what it turned into.
I do have a critique about that. I like the concept in theory, but I don't think they really did anything special with it, because the city itself is just a bunch of domes. It's like you couldn't come up with something that was more visually dynamic. I would have preferred that they... Go ahead.
Oh yeah, they could have, since it is Mechagodzilla, but I'm just saying that it's actually not the clown concept many people think it is when you actually look at what they were going for. Like, you ever see D-Man's video on it?
I have, yeah.
It's a good video.
But trying to pull it back, there was something I wanted to say about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I will say that Sam Raimi is giving it all visually and as a director, because you can tell that he knew there wasn't enough story there to give people what they came for. So he, like you said, he brought in his horror influences and gave Scarlet Witch as close to a comic accurate costume as he could, while still looking presentable enough in a cinematic format as well. Sam Raimi's trying his damnedest with that movie. He really is, but even then, he can only do so much.
Exactly. He's only one piece of the pie. Film, TV show, and gaming, it's a collaborative art form. You need more than one person involved to make it good. Like, he did a good job. He directed it well, but then you had the writer, which I don't know if it was the writer's fault or if it was Disney breathing down the writer's neck, putting them on a overly strict deadline. But
well, according to the charts, sorry, I was doing a joke about studio heads. It would not surprise me to learn that there was a lot of studio interference, because studios are fucking studio heads are fucking idiots who think they know better, because according to these focus groups we've done and all and whatnot and blah blah blah, it's just like, and there's a lot I could say about that.
Exactly. And when it comes to the whole thing of like I still like it overall. I think Raimi put his all into directing it, but you still have the forced MCU humor. You still have a lot of plot holes on aspects that just make no sense. I didn't notice a lot of these plot holes till I watched Mahler's video, so I'm not going to mention them. I'll just say go check out the first few minutes of Mahler's video, and you'll automatically start seeing a lot of problems.
Also, a lack of use of the concept, effective use of the concept, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it suffers a lot of MCU Phase 4 problems. But the thing about this trilogy, you can tell Raimi was given full freedom with everything he wanted to make. He took elements from the Amazing comics, he took elements from the Ultimate, and he added some things of his own to properly condense the story into 2 hours. And that's something I do really respect about Sam Raimi with the trilogy. That's why I don't give him shit for Multiverse of Madness.
Well, I also want to say it's a bit of a pity, because I think he's a Doctor Strange fan as well, because again, he's a fan of comic books, and he actually names drops Doctor Strange in Spider-Man 2.
Exactly. So it's a shame he didn't get them. Like, when I first heard about Multiverse of Madness, I was actually somewhat hyped for it, because I was like, hey, Sam Raimi is returning. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of wish he directed No Way Home, even though I do like No Way Home. And then,
I do like No Way Home too, but I gotta say, I'd gladly watch Spider-Man 3 over No Way Home any day of the week.
Me too. And plus, No Way Home's not a masterpiece either.
Yeah. Even though Spider-Man 3 I still find to be the weakest and not entirely Sam Raimi's vision, only because he was pressured by one of the producers at Sony, to include Venom, even though Sam Raimi didn't want to use Venom.
Yeah, which made it where the pacing was a total fucking mess. So it's not Raimi's fault on why the pacing was a mess. It was studio heads.
Yes. He does slip him and, well, not just him, but everyone who involved in making these movies does slip a bit sometimes, as we pointed out in our review. Actually, you did a better job at making the critiques than I did, because like I said, I wasn't really looking for them when I was rewatching the movie, because I was too busy being entertained. But I respect the fact that you were able to see those things that were worth critiquing and acknowledge them in your half of the review, Joey.
Yeah, and I think you did a better job at that than you give yourself credit for, to be honest. Because again, you've mentioned things that I didn't even notice on first viewing, and there's some things that you mentioned that I also mentioned. Like, you've mentioned things about Tobey Maguire's performance I originally did not go that I didn't go into on my end. You mentioned things on the CGI I did not go in. You mentioned some moments of the set. You mentioned some moments on what else? What else? You mentioned some moments on the soundtrack that I didn't go into. Like, I think we both offered our own value. Did I go a little bit more in the critique realm than you? Sure, but I still think you offered a nice balance of comic book nerd, much more than me, of course, since you're a big comic book reader, and the film reviewer. I think you did an incredible job, and I don't think you give yourself enough credit for it.
Thank you. See, I would say our different aspects of our different points of view really complemented each other going into the review. The same way our different points of view went complementing each other for the Dragon Wars review, because in that same review, we brought up a lot of similar points as well, but also diverging points. Like, you and Trevor made great points about how the FBI subplot of the movie wasn't as well explored as it could be. I'm just like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. You guys are totally right.
Yeah, and D-War is a perfect example of something with, well, horrid pacing, but there's a lot of other things about D-War that make up for its awful pacing that makes it overall a good movie, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And also, I like how great how well you went into the analyzation of the score, of the music score for Spider-Man. You went in further than I did, and that one I feel like I made more. In that one, comparatively speaking to yours, I feel like I made more statements without a whole lot of explaining. Compared to yours.
I think you're half on the music. You explained the musical score decent enough. But yeah, I think you did a decent job at explaining the musical score. Of course, I won't lie and say I didn't dive a bit deeper into it, but that's because I think when it comes to analyzing music, it takes reviewing media for a while to actually I think get better at explaining how a musical score complements the story. I'd say acting too, but you actually did a really good job at explaining what the story the actors were telling.
Thank you. I also wanted to bring up...
I'd actually say in terms of the actors, you're on par with me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we can both agree. When it comes to the actors, we covered just about everything there was to cover. Maybe?
Yeah, I'd say so. Only thing I kind of regret was not talking about that moment where William Dafoe's on the phone and saying, "Can Spider-Man come out to play?" Because in that moment, he was genuinely terrifying. He sounded like a horror villain. And that was something I'll give No Way Home, as they kind of put a bigger emphasis on that aspect.
For sure. One last thing I wanted to say about the score that I didn't say in the actual movie review. I love how sometimes how well for the most part the score matched up with the visuals on screen. Like when Peter tries doing the wall climbing for the first time, how the horns blow. The horns blow as he puts his hands on the wall and starts climbing, and how the horns stay in rhythm with him taking his hands off and climbing up. That was really well done as well.
I appreciate that, because basically it's representing Peter's confusion, because he sees like, hey, I have these weird powers now. I could put my hands on walls and climb. And then once he was starting to get the gist of it, the music represented his emotion of going from confused to excited.
Yeah, I love that little pause where it gives enough time for Toby to look back at the camera with excitement on his face and go, woohoo! And then at that moment, the music starts up again. It's so highly energetic. It matches him running / jumping across the roofs like he does. It's so good. It's so fucking good. The music of that first movie, well, the whole trilogy actually, is mwah, chef's kiss.
I agree 100%. And like I said, when it came to your half, you really went into to comic lore that I couldn't ever dream of going into. That's why I left the trivia part open to you, because you know how in my videos I often begin my content going into the backstory of the movie, what it's based on, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like, you're so acquainted with this character. Like, I'm a Spider-Man nerd. That's no secret. I fucking love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man as much as I love Toku heroes like Kamen Rider, Ultraman, and things of that nature. But since you're a big comic book reader, you're deeper into the lore of the Webhead than I am. So I was like, you know what? I won't give the trivia. I'll put this all on Cody, and I would go to his end on this. And you know what? You didn't disappoint. You went into the movie's background, you went into the comics, and you told me some shit I didn't even know about it. It was actually very professional on both our ends, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. Man, I am so glad with how the review turned out overall, despite any nitpicks I pointed out. The whole thing itself, the way you put it together, your editing skills, holy fucking shit. I don't think it could have turned out any better.
I agree.
And I also appreciate you adding the instrumental of the wonderful song while I was talking about Mary Jane Watson's character.
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing is, I felt like since you were on a more comforting topic, I thought it would it would work for the mood. Though that track I was using, I don't know if it was "Isn't It Wonderful," but that was actually a score from Kamen Rider Black Sun.
Oh, I had no idea. It sounded a lot like the wonderful song from Spider-Man 3. Holy shit, my bad.
No, that's not your bad. It's like you might be onto something. Maybe that was like an instrumental version of that. I don't know.
Could be. I mean, they did add instrumentals of "Oh My Darling" into the soundtrack of original Scooby-Doo episodes.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, that was actually a score from Kamen Rider Black Sun. I was originally considering using Echoes of Love from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, but I just decided to go with that instead.
Go the less cliche decision, huh?
Yeah, because I've used Echoes of Love before.
That's because it's fucking awesome.
It is. It really works for the end of Space Godzilla's. Man, I can't wait to review that movie.
Me either. I got so much to say. Y'all Space Godzilla haters are gonna get your asses kicked. I hope you realize.
I agree 100%. But yeah, many people are gonna kill me for this, but this film has the best Green Goblin. Like, many people
It does.
Many people would kill me for that, the same way some people would kill me for saying Shin Kamen Rider is better than the original Kamen Rider, even though the original Kamen Rider, I can't stretch enough, is a damn good show. Shin's better. Like in this case, I love other versions of the Green Goblin, but Raimi's is better. Like, you have this nice, it delves more into the horror direction of the Green Goblin character. Personally, I find the more Toku hero aesthetic to be cool, and what's even better is they justify it with great writing of the story. William Dafoe's performance has that balance of being creepy, fun, laid back, all these elements blended into one character that just makes it the best version of the Goblin. And when I personally think of the Green Goblin, this is what I go to.
And all the while, it still retains that feeling of tragedy in his life, because you get the sense that there are some of these things that he doesn't want to do, and even says he doesn't want to do. Like when the Goblin's like, we can kill Peter Parker. He's like, I can't. As the Green Goblin's like, oh yes, you're going to, you motherfucker. We're going to. It maintains that sense of tragedy, especially at the end when Norman ultimately ends up dying by his own glider, which is, again, something else taken from the comic books. And then begging, and with his last breath, begging Peter not to tell Harry. And then Harry actually seen Spider-Man with his dad's corpse. Fucking tragedy.
Like you could tell from that final line of how William Dafoe delivered it, he was ashamed of everything he's done, and that's why you feel bad for Norman. Because the thing is, Norman is not a bad person. Like, every time he's with Peter Parker, his goal isn't to make it where Harry doesn't feel loved. It's more so, it's like, hey, I can't be around my son that much because I'm busy with other things. So it makes me happy that my son is hanging with another Brainiac, someone who can influence him to be a lot like his father. Because gotta remember, Norman also wanted Peter Parker, not Peter, Norman also wanted his son to be as successful like him. So he saw that Peter being a Brainiac, his best friend, as a perfect influence on Harry Osborn.
And you also know that he wanted Harry to succeed because he mentioned how he tried getting Harry to the best private schools at the beginning, but Harry just flunked out of them. And he's just, but Harry sees that as a slight, even though it wasn't really meant as one.
Exactly, because
And
Harry was just misunderstanding his father.
Yes, and also, it also does a great job at expressing the tragedy of Spider-Man himself, because there's a whole lot to the lot of complexities to Spider-Man's character, his lore, and his legacy. A lot of it stems from tragedy, heartbreak, and then redemption, and then moving forward, responsibility, and triumph. All in that order.
Exactly, and I think the entire trilogy works together to tell that perfectly with how it develops its cast of characters.
Absolutely. That's why, even though I love how faithful this is, I'm in terms of telling a story, I'm fine with the other two movies going a bit more away from the comics to tell their own story, because even though they don't tell an exact story from the comic like this movie came close to doing, they still keep the feel and the respect of what the Spider-Man's legacy is in those other movies.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, for example, I'm going to tell you something funny. When I mentioned William Dafoe thought the original Goblin look was goofy, I said that to kind of piss off the Marvel fans who were like, "Oh, this mask looks like Power Rangers," because I was like that. Hey, someone who probably isn't a huge Spider-Man fan has seen the goofiness in your silly shit too. So get off that high horse.
Would I like a more comic book accurate version? Maybe. I would have been curious to see how it looked, but I'm not gonna lie. The Goblin suit as is still looks cool and works within the context they put it in.
Exactly. And I personally prefer it because, again, I'm a fan of Toku Hero stuff, and things like and a lot of the inspiration in this movie might actually be a big reason why I grew up to like shows like Kamen Rider and Sentai so much. Of course, Godzilla being a big part of that too, but I think this movie may have also had a part in why I grew to be such a fan of that type of media.
To quote Norman Osborn himself, I respect that.
Yep.
But I guess I was gonna ask you something. Not ask you. I was gonna say thank you for enhancing my "I'm not old" joke in the thing.
You're welcome. Like I had it where it's like, oh, you finish?
I was like, Cody needs a moment.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you, because I thought it would be a perfect transition to my segment, having that happen while also making it funny. I tried to add a perfect blend of comedic satire and critique. Like, that's my style of content. I try to mix both. That's why when you say that, when you said the humor is better than the MCU, I also used a clip from King of the Hill where he's wearing a Disney beanie and a Tom Daya shirt.
That was beautiful. I love that. It's like, that's just, I'm going to kick your ass. That was so fucking funny. And then you did a similar joke with the gonna cry clip, and you have someone in have superimposed a Disney shirt over Harry Osborn. That was funny too.
I'm glad. Or that when I talked about this portrayal of Spider-Man, I went to the suit of the Disney version from who got it from Tony Stark, And then Peter says, "That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?"
That was funny. Oh, oh gosh. This review ended up being a lot funnier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it did. It did. I think we both added a nice little comedic taste to the review.
Ha! You said taste. Oh gosh. But yeah, fucking this review turned out great. And so is this podcast so far. I gotta say, I've been having a hell of a good time.
I agree. Like, we're talking about a movie we both love. We're talking about the time that went into making this video and all things of that nature. And overall, speaking of those, we're going to have to do a review of the other Spider-Man films.
I am so down at some point in the future. Not immediately, mostly because I want to unwind a bit before I start recording / writing for the Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla review. But yeah, absolutely. I would love to review the other Spider-Man movies with you as well, because I got a lot to say about these. Oh, those two. Oh, also something fun for you people. Joey actually wanted me to try to review the other two movies with him originally and try to mesh those reviews into a single video with this one, the one we just did. When I heard that, I'm instantly like, I don't know if I want to do that, because it turned out to be a blessing that we didn't do that again, because look how long this fucking video turned out.
That may have ended up being 3 fucking hours.
An hour for each movie? Sounds about right.
Yeah. but yeah, I think it's a really good movie. I think, like, again, movies aren't inferior for going their own direction, but I do think this, like, for example, if I'm, like, speaking not critically, but what's the word I'm looking for? I think if you're gonna make a movie based on something for fans, you probably should make it for the fans. But if you're not, I'm not going to give you shit for going your own direction, because if it's good, it's a good movie. And if people being able to enjoy it that aren't fans of the source material, I think that says a lot. But this movie is exactly what an adaptation should. It takes a little bit of everything to make the perfect movie and condense it into 2 hours. It's similar thing to why I loved Shin Kamen Rider so much. Shin Kamen Rider took elements from the original series. It took elements from the manga based on that series. And I think it even took some elements from the Kamen Rider, the first movie, alongside adding some new things in there, like the philosophical dialogue of Anno, the subplot of Piranha, and also reimagining certain other things, like changing the allegory from, well, Nazis to the happy science cult, and making it from a simple good versus evil story to a story about escaping indoctrination. And that's why I love Shin Kamen Rider. Shin Kamen Rider is a little bit of everything and more. That's kind of what this film is. Though I wouldn't say this film necessarily reimagined any elements from Spider-Man, besides maybe the Goblin design could qualify as a reimagining. But for the most part, I'd say it is comparable to Shin Kamen Rider in the regard of how it takes a little bit of everything to condense it into 2 hours.
Absolutely. It takes just enough from the source material and adds enough original content that still works in tandem with the source material that they took, and use the building blocks of what makes a good movie on top of the pre-existing material they took, along with the original material that they added in. It tells a great, nice, cohesive whole. Not perfect, but comes damn near close.
That's why me and Cody gave it a 9 out of 10, because there's some flaws that are beyond nitpick, but they're not big enough to take it down from a 9, because overall, I found a lot to praise. Like, when I first watched this movie, when I first rewatched the movie, I was like, oh, the acting in the wrestling scene is a little hammed up. But then when I rewatched it again, I was like, oh, this is intentionally hammed up. This is method acting here to replicate what they're in is a wrestling match. Even though wrestling is supposed to be real in this universe, it's also still trying to feel like you're watching an actual WWE event or something.
Yeah, besides, when you have an actual wrestler in there, you're gonna have a feel of what wrestling in reality is like, because, well, that's his profession outside of this movie as well. That being Randy Savage.
Exactly, and even as a whole, like, everyone, like, the guy going, oh, I can't feel my legs! Like, yeah, that's cheesy, but that's the point. Wrestling's cheesy. If you can't see the direction they're going with there isn't to be realistic, I don't know what to tell you.
I honestly makes you wonder if Sam Raimi might be a wrestling fan himself.
He probably is, considering that what went on in that scene felt like I was watching an actual WWE event.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say? It's not the tonal shifts that we mentioned. I forgot to say they're not jarring, at least not to me. After the one scene happens, they give enough room for it to breathe and say, okay, that just happened. Not in a sarcastic modern humor way. It's more so they're more so effective. On to the next thing. It's not jarring. They give it enough room to breathe before going into the next thing. Like, if it was constant mood changes like that all over, then I would kind of get people's critiques about the tonal inconsistencies. But, like, as far as I could tell, they still did enough to make it work as a cohesive whole. There's, like, no crazy left turns like Spider-Man suddenly dancing with a bunch of stuffed bunnies that randomly came to life for no reason. Like, nothing crazy like that happens.
Yeah, and in terms of Spider-Man, like, again, this goes back to people judging it solely off the concept rather than the execution. Like, sometimes people think, a lot of people think tonal shifts automatically equal bad writing, but they don't stop to think that does this tonal shift work in the context of the story that's happening? And as you pointed out in the review, some moments require different tones. So yes, in the context of the story, the tonal shifts made perfect sense. While on something like Akame ga Kill, which Akame ga Kill is a good show overall, but that suffers with tonal shifts because in Akame ga Kill, it has all this edgy shit going on and it kills off characters left and right, but then just a little bit after, you'll have something goofy that happens. Or even the MCU. If MCU fans complain about this movie for having tonal shifts, they need to gratefully shut the fuck up, because the MCU movies have issues with blending tone together. Like, for example, like I like Shang-Chi, but for example, in Shang-Chi, you have a moment where they are going on about this very serious backstory, and then they bring in a humorous scene, such as the waitress coming on and asking what they want, and it's supposed to be awkward and all that shit. That it really takes away from the serious moment that was going on in that movie. The humor of the MCU is tonal shifts done wrong. How could they bash this movie and then praise the MCU for its sometimes terrible tonal shifting?
Because they're fucking what's the word where you're subservient to something? Shills. They're fucking MCU shills.
Exactly, because MCU is exactly what comes to mind when I think of tonal shifts done wrong. There's nothing in this movie where the tone's bad. Like, for example, why does the humor work in Spider-Man 2002? It makes sense in the context of the story. Like, with him shooting his web out and not knowing how to use it, him saying all this stuff like, go web, there was a lot of weight there, because when he was running, he had this big momentum. He thought he could do everything. He was in the moment. So when he couldn't get this one thing right, because he was so used to accidentally shooting the web out, it made sense, and it gave him a reason to learn how to use the web. And even then, when he got the web out, he had to learn to properly web swing because he fucking hit himself. So that was a moment that worked in the story, worked with the context, and also worked with the character development with Peter. That's humor fitted into the story properly.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I'll give you all another example of tonal inconsistency. The anime series High School of the Dead. You know, that one about zombies, but also has a whole lot of fan service. I don't mind service so much. I approved about it before, but now I'm more okay with it. But you have these people in these serious situations that are trying to fight off a whole bunch of zombies, but at the exact same time, there's like all these awkward shots of up close shots of titties and clams, camel toes, and all that. It's just like, why is this here when we're supposed to be focusing on them fighting the zombies? Then they have a bathtub scene later on that doesn't include fighting zombies. It's like, this works. This works here. It shouldn't have been when they were trying to fight the zombies. That's also a thing, a prime example of lack of good consistency, in my opinion.
I've seen High School of the Dead. I'm not sure if I agree with that take, but I do understand what you're saying, and I do gotta say, you might be right in that regard.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. But yeah, that's total inconsistency. There's nothing inconsistent about this movie. If you're gonna, honestly, when you criticize the campiness of this movie, it's like, are you even really a fan of the source material? It's like all of the tones in this movie are there in the comics.
Yeah, that's the problem, though. There's a whole lot of people who watch these movies who don't read comic books, therefore they don't really understand what the characters were originally about. So they're like thinking, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. And also aren't critical thinkers like, say, you or I, who have an appreciation for the art of storytelling / filmmaking, so they don't fully understand why these certain things are bad. Not to jerk myself off. I'm sorry if it comes across that way, but that's generally how I see it with general audiences. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, anyone here.
Well, you're right on that aspect, because again, there's some, you can't just, when you're reviewing media, you have to offer substance to what you're saying. It's easy to say, oh, this is bad because it has exposition, or oh, this is bad because it has fast pace, or oh, this is bad because it has jump cuts. But it's much more complex and more substantial to go in why those works. Again, coming back to Shin Kamen Rider, I've seen some people complain about this jump cuts in Shin Kamen Rider, but again, here's why they work. Here's a substantial take on those jump cuts. Like, for example, they're trying to mimic a lot of the style that went in. Like, there was a lot of jump cuts in the original Rider show, which I can appreciate them doing for what they couldn't for a TV show back then. Shin Kamen Rider also has those jump cuts, but to kind of bring in the quality and feel of that old style. But due to it being more modern, you have modern special effects for the gore and also much more weight to the punches. And Anno also added his own reason for why the jump cuts would work. Because, like, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but some moments when the writer is punching the Shocker members, you briefly see from the Shocker members' eyes to get a feel of the writer's brutality. You're seeing from them seconds before they have their skulls crushed. That's why the jump cuts work on those moments in Shin Kamen Rider. It's easy to trash those fights and say, oh, there's jump cuts, though the action's bad. But it's much more complex and substantial to explain why those cuts actually work. Or if you disagree with me, actually explain why the jump cuts are bad, rather than just saying they're bad because they're jump cuts.
Right. I can agree with that. Another thing, that doesn't happen with every single fight. Every fight has its own little tone to it, its own dynamic, which I actually appreciate. That's something else everyone criticized the movie for, was the inconsistency of the action scenes. I actually didn't mind it because I still thought they all worked within the context of the story. It also made the movie overall more dynamic, that they went such different routes with the many different action scenes.
Exactly, especially since when it comes to the fights of that movie, the writer and all of them all their abilities was formed by the animal that they had injected into them. So it would make sense with the wasp fight that it would have to go for a more speed-like direction since wasps are fast. It makes sense how when he was fighting Kamen Rider number 2, it was a more fast Dragon Ball-like fight because again, those two had the same abilities and same power level. So it made perfect sense in the story why they would fight different. I'm not sure why people complained about it. It adds more variety, and it makes sense why they would. Because if it's not, why have all these different animal aesthetics if they're just going to fight the same?
Exactly. I agree full-heartedly. So I'm glad I was able to bring that up, and you were able to expand on it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for bringing it up, because again, I think me and you have a great dynamic when it comes to reviewing media. Same goes for when we reviewed Spider-Man 2002.
For sure. This has been a great time. I'm sorry for that content sort of stopped happening on the channel, both with the reviews and the podcast temporarily. Because I got COVID, I couldn't be on the podcast that much, and also there was a sort of a dry.
Cody, you're
That we were
blurring out.
but there has more media now. So what?
Can you repeat that? Because you were fading out. Can you repeat that, bro? You were fading out.
Oh, sorry.
You said there was, and then that.
Oh, there was there was sort of a dry up in news around media that we were both mutually interested in. So that's part of why we stopped doing the podcast temporarily. And also the dry up on video reviews and edited videos from him, again, was because of this fucking collaboration we did here, because of the nightmare it was for him editing this.
Yeah, let me tell you another thing that happens of putting this video together. So I use this editing software called DaVinci Resolve. It apparently works best with GPUs because this editing software is so powerful. It gives you all these tools. A lot of people actually use this as editing software, the premium version, to edit independent movies. And I use the free version of DaVinci Resolve right now. But even that has a lot of tools, pretty much all the tools I need to make the videos I'm wanting. But of course, I do not have a GPU, so when it came to putting it together, sometimes it would be a bit laggy when I would try to edit it. The video isn't laggy, but the process at times would get laggy, and it would drain the battery of my laptop like a son of a bitch, which would also mean I would have to constantly charge the damn thing, so that would slow it down. And then at one point, due to the slowness, I accidentally accidentally, when I was trying to cut a small piece of the video, I accidentally cut it and pushed a button that cut it over half my editing process. Now, at this time, I didn't know that there was... Yeah. And at this time, I didn't know that there was an undo button. My friend, G.N.O, formerly known as Mr. Ranting Randy, check out his new channel. He got unjustifiably banned before due to a company abusing their copyright power, but he has new channels now. Check out his channel, G.N.O and I don't know and such. But he told me that there's something in DaVinci that allows you to undo any mistake you did. The issue is here. I already X'd that shit out because I didn't know I could do that. So after I X'd it out, there was no fixing any mistake I did. So at that point, I was willing to just say, I almost was at the point where I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, I remember that when this happened, it actually started running joke in the server that this review was fucking cursed.
Yeah, it did. It actually gets worse because after that, when I started editing it again, I was almost done with it. And then on the day when I was nearing the end, my laptop charger fucking died. And then I didn't know that if my laptop died or if it was the laptop charger, so I was like, well, the video's not going to be done for a while. And thanks to my good friend Zimzilla, I can't thank him enough. Thank you, man. If you're probably gonna watch this at some point because you're very loyal. I'm loyal to you too. We're very good friends. Thank you for giving me the money to buy that charger cord, because that helped me get it done faster, alongside helping you edit your video and helping me get some commissions out of the way. Thank you. If he did not do that, I wouldn't be. This video would still not be out. So
yeah, the payment was that Joey had to give him a little sucky. That's what he means by loyalty. They like to suck each other off a lot.
Oh, fuck off. Don't project what you and Trevor do on me and Nathaniel.
Hey, don't you bring the truth into this. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, God. But yeah, in my opinion, like, these movies still hasn't been surpassed yet. Again, on the substantial argument thing, it's easy to throw at someone, oh, you're just biased because of nostalgia. But that's why I said at the end of the video, hey, if I'm biased, feel free to deconstruct what I'm saying.
Yeah, debate me, bro. Debunk me, bro.
And I know that's a meme, the whole debate me bro shit, but I do stand by, if you're gonna downgrade someone else's opinion, you better be willing to debunk them, or else you're gonna look like a fucking salty moron.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. I just brought it up to me because it was relevant to the situation.
Oh, I know 100%. I'm not insulting you, by the way. I know why you were
For
doing
sure.
it. But yeah,
I like to make people laugh. I like to tell jokes. Oh, and I want to say one more thing. All three of these movies fucking solo the entire MCU. Come at me.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. I'll also say Andrew Garfield's does too.
Damn right.
I'll fucking say right now, I think Andrew Garfield's is also better than Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse is overrated. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's fucking overrated. I'm dying on that hill. It's a good movie, but I don't know why everyone fucking loves it.
I think there's two sole reasons why. One, because it's from the point of view of Miles Morales. There's nothing wrong with that in principle, but the fact that everyone's just ranting, we live in an age where representation matters, apparently, and that's the sole reason why people praise certain pieces of media, like that one Birds of Prey movie with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. And the other thing is because the animation was new/different, even though Captain Underpants movie was already doing that shit, but everyone paid attention to this movie first because it was Spider-Man. It had the Spider-Man name attached to it. I just don't think the animation is anything that special. I respect it because it is something different, and I respect that it was trying to look like illustrations in motion, like a flip book, where you have one image and then you flip a page over it to make it look like it's moving in speedy succession. But in concept, the idea should work, and it does. It is a good movie. It's just not the second coming like everyone thinks it is.
Exactly. But anyway, you got anything more to say, bro?
This is the best Spider-Man movies. One of the best Spider-Man movies and the rest of the trilogy are the other best of the Spider-Man series of the Spider-Man movies, and also some of the best superhero movies put out in general. And I'd like to think we gave enough reasons in our review and in this podcast as to why.
Exactly. If you guys haven't already, check out that review. This is just a little expansion and after party we decided to have with it, and I enjoyed doing it. Again, check out the video if you haven't already. I'm also check me out on Rumble, because again, I'm gonna upload a version of both this and Black Sun that touches up the slight imperfections there, because I'm a perfectionist. So when I notice little details like that, I want to touch that up. Like, I want to fix the audio balancing in areas, and also some of the things I apparently got wrong in the editing. But as a whole, I'm happy with the YouTube upload. And I enjoyed this discussion.
Me too. Me too. Thank you for having me as part of the video and for continuing to have me as your co-host here. I hope you get to do this a whole lot more.
I agree 100%, and I look forward to doing more with you because this is fun. It's a nice little dynamic thing. So yeah, that was it for this episode. I do have some other things in the works, like if you want Toku content, like I got something for Godzilla planned. It's gonna be something nobody else for some reason has done till now. So yeah, look forward to that. I also have other videos in the works, like why I don't like dub, and a few other things. This is Gojin the Makai Phantom, leaving the building.
You know what, Joey?